was born in Cleveland, Ohio. My dad was up there for a teaching position, but my mom's family has been in Texas for almost 200 years now, so they were some of the first settlers of Texas. My dad's family came from Italy, so he's first generation Italian. So I mostly grew up in Texas. My parents moved back when I was like 1 year old to Houston area, where my dad was at the University of Houston. I've always been fascinated with nature, different animals, and almost obsessed with it. And in fact, throughout high school, my plan was to become a vet. So I even worked for a vet for many years. And then when I went to the University of Texas, I got into a lab and I never looked back. I fell in love with research. Sort of the things that almost repel other people, like the uncertainty, not knowing whether a hard day's work is going to pay off. In fact, you could work for months and months and have it all fail, or have the answer not be what you really wanted it to be or expected it to be. It's sort of the venturing into the unknown and discovering things that no one else knew about, plus the fact that it could be so impactful. That really drove me. I've lost many family members to leukemias and other cancers as well, so that has a big impact. And that's what really led me to focus on cancer. I would definitely say be prepared to face hurdles, but to stick with it and to try to think outside the box. In the end, it's much more fun and exciting, and to just try to sort of jump on the same bandwagon isn't really going to move the field forward, and I don't think it's really that satisfying for the person in the long run. I have a number of things that I'm very active in. One is cycling, and so I cycle with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society Team Survivor. Not just my cycling buddies, but my good friends. And so we go out every Saturday and we cycle, anywhere from 40 to 80 miles, often up into the mountains. That's just a lot of fun, and they're my good friends. Many of them are cancer survivors, particularly, blood cancer survivors, which is why they're on the team. And so that's also serves as an inspiration for our research. I'm a runner, so I like to go running as well. It's always a lot of fun. So those are some of the sort of true hobbies. And doing anything with my dogs. We have 2 greyhounds, so we'll take them on our runs and hikes, and they love that, and they're just a lot of fun. I always have thought about writing a book, but just never pulled the trigger, and Harvard University Press contacted me. So we had written an article in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science kind of describing some of the theory, and they read it and they contacted me and said this would be a great book. And they were great because they really walked me through the process, and the editing was fantastic. It's not easy just to write a book from scratch. I spent about a year in total writing it, but probably 6 months was more intense. And so I did leave the lab sort of partially. I kept managing lab, I kept managing my grants. I didn't truly take a sabbatical. It counted as a sabbatical, but I separated myself from a lot of the other meetings that one would normally have in order to be able to put this together. And it's basically the theory and a different way of thinking about cancer. And it's framing cancer from an evolutionary perspective. So what we're trying to understand is, what is that investment in youth, and how is that tumor suppressive? How is that cancer preventative? And what is the waning of that investment in old age, and how does that affect our tissues to promote cancer? Because if we can understand that, then I think we could better design preventative strategies that, maintain a more youthful tissue landscape that is cancer preventative for longer. So that should sort of be the ultimate goal, is to maximize our potential and to spend the least amount of time we're sick and not able to live a happy, healthy life. The first thing to recognize is leadership does matter, but I think good leadership can really make a difference. You need to be able to bring people together, manage disparate personalities, but in the end, I think you can accomplish something that is far greater than could be accomplished at an individual level. And I think leadership is also about judicious use of resources. So making sure that the resources get invested to potentially the research to have a long-term benefit for people. And I think that takes a very balanced approach. So I'd say my advice would be, it's a great thing to do, but you really have to be committed to it, and you have to be prepared for hurdles. You have to be prepared for stumbling blocks, and you have to be prepared to work with people. I used to think I never wanted to do anything in leadership. So probably even for the first 10 years of my lab, it never really crossed my mind. It wasn't until heavily involved in the molecular biology program, which is a graduate student program, the head of molecular biology was going to step down. And people approached me and said, you should be the one to do this. You're very committed to the program and everything. And my first response was, no way. that's not what I want to do. I really want to focus on my lab. I took it over, and I really felt like I had an impact on the program and was making a difference in educating students. So that was gratifying. And so later on, when I got approached for a leadership position within the Cancer Center, which at that point was the associate director for basic research, again, if my first impulse was no, I'm not really interested. But the more I thought about it, and the more I thought about the impact it could possibly have, I decided that I would go ahead and get into it. And it's been very gratifying. I think the Cancer Center works very well. The leadership team, we all get along. We're actually all friends. We have a common mission. I think functions very well as a team. Yeah, I hadn't really given that one much thought, but one thing not everyone might know is I lived a year in Uruguay, South America, in high school. And that was as an exchange student. It was American Field Service, AFS, which was they would send students abroad. So you'd live with a family, you never met them before. You would just go live and go through high school there. It kind of a scary thought, particularly back in 1983 when there wasn't email, there wasn't FaceTime. It was quite the experience to go and live in a place, speak a different language for a year, go to school. It was a fantastic experience. I think it was probably one of the most informative experiences of my life. I think everyone should spend time in another country. My sort of simplistic notion is that if everyone spent 1 year in another country, that war would almost be impossible. Because I think war almost requires dehumanization of your opponent. And I think that it's hard to dehumanize people if you've experienced living with other people.